The concept of hell illustrates that real experience of celebrating community is later transformed into a religious idea that enhances the power of priests. Hell was, and still is, nothing more than taking our trash to city dumps in order to keep our streets clean and attractive for ourselves and our neighbors. A side benefit, fire prevents dumps from becoming breeding grounds of disease. What that has to do with suffering eternal torment as punishment for disobeying priests, only priests can say. Priests transform secular discoveries about the real world into sacred holidays. Their justification for doing so is their claim that man is inherently evil and needs redemption through ritual. This claim about evil human nature contradicts Franz de Waal's conclusion that moral sentiment is an instinctual necessity for any social species. His claim is supported by empirical observations of chimpanzees as reported in his book, Good-Natured. This practice of confiscating and transforming, if not perverting, community celebrations continues from prehistory until invention of Christmas and Easter as religious holidays a mere century ago. In the form of writing, historical evidence appears starting at the end of the last ice age. Apart from rich details in writing, archaeological evidence tells us at best a sketchy story about how people live daily life, and effectively nothing about the role of verbal intelligence in creating social classes and castes. However, only 10,000 years since emergence of temperate climate seems too short a time during which human nature might have changed importantly. 7,500 years into this temperate era, Pythagoras illustrated how verbally intelligent people behaved from then until now, and so probably in the prehistorical period as well. Pythagoras discovered a real-world fact of great social importance and reduced it to a mathematical equation. He then invented a religion and recruited priests whose social power was based upon his privileged knowledge. As of the earliest written artifacts that we have recovered, discoveries of real-world phenomena had already become occasions for community celebration that were organized into elaborate calendars devised by priests. Surely this fact figures importantly in explaining why, like Vikings and Eskimos, Ice Age man did not create high-level culture. Among early man on the western coast of Africa, jewelry making, an activity of no survival value, was the immediate result of discovering how easily fish are caught. Obviously, time spent in survival activities must be reduced in order to leave time for creative pursuits. Accordingly, just as tithing supported the Christian priests who laid the foundations of Western art, music, literature, and even at least one science, genetics, so ancient Egyptian documents indicate that religious celebrations functioned, at least in part, to feed the priests who invented that culture. Many of these documents can be found in Medinet Habu, where information is gathered from temple walls, papyrus scrolls, and festival calendars. These documents detail exactly how many loaves of bread, cakes, beer containers, meat, fowl, incense, and charcoal bundles were needed for festivals. More importantly, they detailed what percentage of the supply went to priests conducting festivities. The most enduring ancient festivals persist to modern times, at least as celebratory concepts associated with calendar dates. Modern religions adopt these dates and adapt them within their own sacred context. Prime examples include Christmas and Easter. Oddly, every denomination of Christianity abjectly rejected both celebrations until clerics finally had no choice but to accommodate popular demands. Christmas is just one of many celebrations that take place at the winter solstice, as is Easter a celebration of the vernal or spring equinox. An article in the 1910 edition of the Encyclopaedia Britannica reported that there is no indication of the observance of the Easter festival either in the New Testament or in the writings of the Apostolic Fathers. Apparently, the sanctity of special times was an idea absent from the minds of the first Christians. An article in the 1913 edition of the Catholic Encyclopedia reported that Easter became a synthesis of many pagan celebrations of the return of spring. The female egg represents germinating life, and the male rabbit represents fertility. In his 1853 treatise, The Two Babylons, Reverend Alexander Hislop asks, "What means the term Easter itself? It is not a Christian name. It bears its Chaldean origin on its very forehead. Easter is nothing else than Astarte, one of the titles of Beltis, the Queen of Heaven, whose name, as found by Lalard on the Assyrian monuments, is Ishtar. Such is the history of Easter. Popular observances that still attend the period of its celebration amply confirm the testimony of history as to its Babylonian character. The hot cross buns of Good Friday and the dyed eggs of Pasch, or Easter Sunday, figured in the Chaldean rites just as they do today. While the origin of the name Easter is unknown, St. Bede, an 8th century English scholar, suggested Eastri, the name of the Anglo-Saxon Teutonic goddess of spring and fertility, to whom the month of April was dedicated. She was celebrated on the vernal equinox with brightly colored eggs, representing the sunlight of spring. A Greek legend tells of the return of Persephone, daughter of Demeter, from the underworld to the light of day. To ancient Greeks, her return symbolized the resurrection of life brought forth by spring. By their dancing and singing during the spring equinox, Phrygians believed their omnipotent deity, asleep since the winter solstice, would awaken in time for spring. The Christian Easter celebration corresponds to the Jewish festival of Passover, or Pesach, from which Pasch derives, another name for Easter. Following pagan traditions, Roman Emperor Constantine I convened the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. The council ruled that Easter would take place on the first Sunday after the full moon, following the vernal equinox. If a full moon were to fall on a Sunday coinciding with Passover, Easter would be commemorated the following Sunday.